everyone, you're welcome to this stimulating class. My name is Mac-Ozigbo, and I'll be taking you through the course Industrial Relations, MBA833. Stay tuned as I solicit your undivided attention. Here we go. Here we are, class. Industrial relations. Industrial relations actually is about employer-employee relationship in the workplace. And the essence of this is to enhance employee satisfaction, to enhance industrial peace, and maintain industrial growth. So fundamentally, industrial relations cover all aspects of employment relations between the employer and the employee in organizational operations. Therefore, it relates to contractual relationship between the employer and the employees, regulation of conditions of service, collective bargaining, you talk about management of strikes, you talk about industrial democracy, you talk about employee trade union relations and organization personal policies, and how these policies relate on mutual basis with individual workers and their trade unions in the course of organizational operations. The topic for today is the basis of industrial relations. The basis of industrial relations. So let's take these points, note these points, that an organization exists as the instance of efforts of both the employer and the employee. You can't have an organization without an employer. You can't both employer and employees working in synergy. So it's important to acknowledge the fact that they are both major key players in an organizational development. So we talk about employees and employers being prime movers of the operational activities in the organizations. We also talk about the two parties coexisting and interacting in the course of the day-to-day operations. So it's important that we understand these things. And then to note that the relationship between the employer and the employees is contractual in nature. What do we mean by contractual in nature? It's like a contract. The employee has got his or her bit in the game, and the employer has his too. What is the duty of the employee? You have to take care of your responsibilities, and then the employer takes care of you in terms of remuneration. So let's look at another point where we have that it has a tripartite nature. What do we mean by that? It means that it's shared by or involving three parties. The relationship here exists between workers, employers, and government. That the position of the government here is, that of a regulator and protector of the workers' rights. And then it is worthy to also note that the government's position, the government also acts as a watchdog over the relationship between the employer and employees in the workplace. So the trade union also serves as the linking pin between the worker and the employer or the management in industrial relations. Let's take a look. We have trade unions, we have courts and tribunals. These are all stakeholders and people that play part in industrial relations. As we progress, we'll take care of that. We get to acquaint ourselves with all these other stakeholders in industrial relations. So let's go on to take a look at the essence of industrial relations. The essence of industrial relations, you can say that the essence of the industrial relations revolve around the following. It revolves around determination of general conditions of service. Discipline is so important in the workplace. We all know maintaining a stable workforce, maintaining an ideal level of productivity, maintaining welfare facilities for workers, so on. So now, take a look at the parties involved in industrial relations. I want you to take a look closely. You look at the primary parties whereby the employees, the employers, and governments that are acknowledged. And then you have other parties, and which may include the employers association, the trade unions, the courts and tribunals, and so on and so forth. So these are the parties. It's worth knowing that these are parties involved in industrial relations. So now, one may rightly wish to, say one may say, talking about the role of employees in industrial relations. What are the roles of employees in industrial relations? So let us take note of this, that in exchange for payments and protection that that the law provides, employees are expected to act responsibly and ethically. So in these key areas, let's take a look at what is being expected of the employees. So we take a look at it and we say punctuality. We all know that lateness and unpredictable attendance cause difficulties for employers. People who exhibit poor punctuality are a burden to the rest of a work group. So it's noteworthy that punctuality is part of it. And then the next one, we have ethical behavior. Ethical behavior, things like conducting proper dealings with customers, no conflict of interest or fraud, responding to competitors' behavior without transgressing the law, complying with governmental regulations, providing good products or services, observing good environmental practices, providing support to work colleagues, and then providing good working quality of work. These are things that we can, say are ethical behaviors in the workplace. Obedience is also key as part of what is being expected from the employees. Like obedience, employees are expected to be obedient to all lawful orders from their employer or employer's agents, like a manager, and so on. They are expected to carry out work assigned to them, like we call it the job description, and in the manner requested by the employer, provided it is not against the law. Provided it is not against the law. So one wouldn't say, I'm being obedient. Whatever you ask me to do, I do it obediently. It doesn't matter. There's a clause here, and the clause says, provided it's, whatever they are asking you to do, it's not against the law. So the next one is confidentiality and privacy. It's important that we also note that employees must not misuse the information, any kind of information about clients or companies, personnel. Under the Privacy Act, for instance, information can only be used for the purpose for which it was collected. So it's good to take note of that. And then the next one is safety and care. So under safety and care, employees are responsible actually for acting with all due regard to safety all the time. They have a responsibility to observe the legal safety regulations. They must give consideration to the health and welfare of co-workers. And then relations. The employers have got roles, and then we have to analyze the roles of the employers. You have them all here. We'll just take maybe a few of them. You can see we have managing the trade union activities. That takes me to briefly talk about how trade union came to be. As a collective, it was just as a collective response of working people exposed to the economic deprivations of an inappropriate societal structure and exploitative attitudes of the industrial and commercial operators. Therefore, the workers find themselves, repeatedly engaged in bitter conflict with the controlling elements in the society. So now, taking a look at what's the role that we say they play in industrial relations, you can see granting recognition to registered trade union. Of course, it means that any registered trade unions will be recognized, and their voice will be heard. Then we have also, as I'm taking it, not in that order because I won't take all everything you have in your lecture notes. So the management of workers' grievances, the role of employers in an organization, especially when it has to do with industrial relations. We also have where that's the need for recognizing and incorporating existing industrial laws and regulations. The role of trade unions in industrial relations. So, of course, as we know, let me just be fast, ensuring good relations between workers and the management. You can see obtaining better conditions of service for its workers. You can see they also give financial support to their members. You can also see that we have engaging in collective bargaining and consultations and all that. Taking a good look at Exhibit 4, you can see, trade unionism in action, and we can observe synergy. There is strength in unionism. You can see different hands coming, together, being joined to achieve greater heights. What an employee cannot achieve standing alone can obviously be, possible with a union of other employees. So this is so amazing. Industrial relations. Now we're going to take a look at this. And I want you to pay attention as we unravel this. You can see the government is referred to as the third party in industrial relations. And we have explained it earlier, what they do, how they intervene and all that in industrial relations. And you can see that employers are driven by the inordinate desire to maximize. Before we go into that, we mentioned that the government acts as the watchdog over the disposition of the two parties. Now, pay attention to this. Employers are driven by the inordinate desire to maximize profit. They are driven by the inordinate desire to maximize profit. And I want you to also pay attention to the next statement. Employees are haunted by fears of unemployment and starvation, and hence they work under very severe and often debilitating conditions. What do we mean by debilitating conditions? We're weakening conditions. They are weak, they are feeble. When you describe things like that, when somebody has become like vegetable, you don't have a say, you are incapacitated. That's the position employees find themselves. They just need this job. Even if the conditions of this job is not, they're not satisfied, they don't have that job satisfaction, but they are stuck to this job because it is their only means of livelihood. So the employers take advantage of that, and the employees don't have a choice but to work under this bad condition. So you have seen it. Employers are driven by the inordinate desire to maximize profit, while employees want to have money, make more money. They are eager to pay less. So what is the resultant effect of this? There is this latent and manifest, antagonism among the two parties, occasioned by the fact that, their respective interests are at variance. What do we mean by this? The employees want, maybe increments in salaries, promotions here and there. They want, by all means, to be paid higher, to be paid more and more. And then the employers, on the other hand, will always, in their bid to ensure, like they want to different interests. The employers have their interest to make more money, more profitability. They have more everything to at least the bottom line, to get the bottom line to increase at the end of the day. So you find out that this variance is there because their interests vary a lot. So the only common ground that employees and employers have is in terms of production. They want to continually ensure that production, it goes on, because that is, if there's no production, they won't be paid. So for that reason, that's the only common ground. Otherwise, all in an organizations, all you see is variance of interest. So, okay, so here we have government intervention, what it will ensure. So we can see here that government intervention will ensure protection of workers' rights and privileges in the workplace. And then provision of a conducive environment, through legislation for the use of collective bargaining to ensure fair deal for both parties. And then industrial harmony and societal progress. Okay, here we have Exhibit 5. We have, you can see a government intervention, it's portraying or demonstrating how government intervenes, in the affairs in organizations, how government intervention works. You can see how the big hand that is up there is trying to change or, make an alteration. It signifies power, and it therefore behooves on the government to intervene in the practice of industrial relations in order to regulate the behavior of the employers and at the same time ensure their compliance with the existing industrial laws. We all know that employers in industrial organizations are all too powerful, or they seem to exercise authority so much with their intimidating might to hire and fire at any plausible excuse. The government has onerous responsibility to ensure the protection of the workers' rights and privileges in the workplace. In summary, therefore, we have highlighted the basis of industrial relations. The meaning of industrial relations has been considered along with the various areas of responsibility of an employee, employer, the trade unions, and the government in the management and practice of industrial relations in industrial and commercial organizations. Thank you. See you next class.